All right, let's recap what's happened. President Trump, his administration, Republican members of Congress, and countless Republicans across the country created and spread the big lie that the election was stolen. Trump and many Republicans then encouraged their supporters to stop the steal and show up at the Capitol to stop members of Congress from certifying the election. Trump told them to fight like hell. Then, a violent mob of Republicans, conservatives, Christian nationalists, white supremacists, Trump supporters, and QAnon followers attacked the Capitol with extreme violence. They beat police with American flags, blue line flags, sprayed bear mace at them, tased them. They broke into the Capitol. They paraded around the halls of Congress. They chanted they wanted to hang Mike Pence. They taunted Nancy Pelosi. They ransacked the Capitol and they destroyed offices of members of Congress. They stole laptops, papers, etc. Then, Republicans denied that anything happened. They tried to block the impeachment proceeding. They called the insurrection a normal tourist visit. They voted against the bipartisan commission. They blocked the bipartisan commission in the Senate. They tried to blame everyone else but the insurrectionists, Trump, and themselves for the insurrection. They spread conspiracy theories that the FBI actually led the insurrection, that it was Antifa, as if we don't have endless footage of people openly saying that Trump sent them, and insurrectionists carrying flags that said Trump and MAGA, showing the insurrectionists then marched directly from Trump's rally to the Capitol, after Trump said to fight like hell. Then they tried to undermine the committee by pulling out of it completely. And now, we're hearing from officers who were there, who had to fight in brutal combat against their fellow citizens to protect the Capitol and protect our democracy. Let's take a look at some of the harrowing testimony from the first hearing of the January 6th committee.
You got to fight the right people. Yeah, come on. Push. Try it.
I got you, Mike. That's my hand when you're good.
Push him back. We need EMTs now!
Mike, stay in there, buddy. Mike, it's Jimmy. I'm here. Mike.
And eventually found myself out probably about 250, maybe 300 feet away from the mouth of the tunnel where the other officers were at. And I knew I was up shit creek without a paddle. I was trying to push guys off of me, create some space. All the while, I recognized the fact that there were individuals that were trying to grab a hold of my gun. I remember one of them distinctly lunging at me time and time again, trying to grab my gun. And I heard people in the crowd yelling, "Get his gun, kill him with his own gun," and words to that effect. I thought about using my weapon. I believed that there were individuals in the crowd whose intentions were to kill me. And I came to that conclusion because of the fact that separated from these other officers who were only trying to defend the Capitol, I no longer posed any type of threat, nor was I an impediment to them, going inside of the building. But yet they tortured me. They beat me. I was struck with a taser device at the base of my skull numerous times. And they continued to do so until I yelled out that I have kids. And I said that hoping to appeal to some of those individuals' humanity. And fortunately, a few did step in and intervene on my behalf. They did assist me back towards the mouth of the tunnel entrance, and other officers were then able to rescue me and pull me back inside. But at that point, I was unconscious. And based off the body-worn camera footage, it's believed that I was unconscious for approximately 4 minutes.
It was clear the terrorists perceived themselves to be Christians. I saw the Christian flag directly to my front. Another read, "Jesus is my savior, Trump is my president." Another, "Jesus is king." One flag read, "Don't give up the ship." Another had crossed rifles beneath the skull, emblazoned with the pattern of the American flag. To my perpetual confusion, I saw the thin blue line flag, a symbol of support for law enforcement, more than once, being carried by the terrorists as they ignored our commands and continued to assault us. The acrid sting of CS gas or tear gas and OC spray, which is mace, hung in the air as the terrorists threw our own CS gas canisters back at us and sprayed us with their own OC. Either they bought themselves or stole from us.
I told them to just leave the Capitol, and in response they yelled, "No, man, this is our house. President Trump invited us here. We're here to stop the steal. Joe Biden is not the president. Nobody voted for Joe Biden." I'm a law enforcement officer, and I do my best to keep politics out of my job. But in this circumstance, I responded, "Well, I voted for Joe Biden. Does my vote not count? Am I nobody?" That prompted a torrent of racial epithets. One woman in a pink MAGA shirt yelled, "You hear that, guys? This nigger voted for Joe Biden." Then the crowd, perhaps around 20 people, joined in screaming, "Boo, fucking nigger." No one had ever called me a nigger while wearing the uniform of a Capitol Police officer. In the days following the attempted insurrection, other black officers shared with me their own stories of racial abuse on January 6th. One officer told me he had never, and in his entire 40 years of life, been called a nigger to his face, and that streak ended on January 6th. Yet another black officer later told me he had been confronted by insurrectionists in the Capitol who told him, "Put your gun down and we'll show you what kind of nigger you really are."
And we were not letting them in. They tried to convert us. They tried to persuade us to let them in, yelling. And then once they saw that we were not doing that, they continued to even attack us even more. And it was nonstop. So my time compared to Iraq, totally different. This is our own citizens, people who we sworn an oath to protect, but yet they are attacking us with the same flag that they claim to represent. It was bad.
Went to hell and back to protect them and the people in this room. But too many are now telling me that hell doesn't exist, or that hell actually wasn't that bad. The indifference shown to my colleagues is disgraceful.
Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger are being lauded as courageous heroes. And while I agree with that notion, why? Because they told the truth? Why is telling the truth hard? I guess in this America, it is.
This was a violent insurrection. This was a domestic terrorist attack. These people went to the Capitol with the intent to cause violence, to overthrow our democracy and overturn the election. The former president of the United States is responsible for this. Many Republican members of Congress are responsible for this. And now they are all trying to gaslight the country, pretend like nothing happened. say it was just a normal tourist visit. It is shameful. And I honestly don't know how we move forward from here. There are only two major political parties in this country. One stands for democracy, the rule of law, and for civil rights. The other is actively trying to undermine our democracy, siding with insurrectionists and terrorists, passing restrictive voter suppression laws, blocking some citizens from getting equal rights, and to rule this country through a Christian nationalist ideology. How do we move forward from here? With only one of two major parties that is for democracy and the other that is so clearly for authoritarianism. And if you are still a Republican today, but you disagree with the direction of the party, then why are you still a Republican? The party doesn't want to change. The party leadership, from the former president to the RNC chair, Senate minority leader, House minority leader, and on down to state parties across the country, are all clearly in Trump's camp. This is who the party is today. To pretend otherwise is just a fantasy. I want to end off with some comments from the brave officers who testified before the committee about what they want the committee to actually investigate, what they hope that the committee will achieve, and then some final closing remarks from Officer Harry Dunn, which are just so spot on and so important.
A lot of, the events of January 6th and the days preceding, I guess it's interesting, and from a law enforcement perspective, as a police officer, a lot of these events happen in plain sight. We had violent political rhetoric. We had the organization of a rally whose title was Stop the Steal. And that rally occurred on January 6th, which I don't believe was a coincidence that on January 6th, members of Congress, you here in the room today, were charged with tallying the electoral votes and certifying the election of our president. And in the academy, we learn about time, place, and circumstance in investigating potential crimes and those who may have committed them. And so the time, the place, and the circumstances of that rally, that rhetoric, and those events, to me, leads in the direction of our president and other members, not only of Congress and the Senate, but that is what I am looking for, is an investigation into those actions and activities which may have resulted in the events of January 6th, and also whether or not there was collaboration between those members, their staff, and these terrorists.
As patrol officers, we can only, deal with the crimes that happen on the streets, the misdemeanors, and occasionally the violent felonies. But you guys are the only ones we've got to deal with crimes that occur above us. I need you guys to address if anyone in power had a role in this, if anyone in power coordinated or aided or abetted or tried to downplay, tried to prevent the investigation of this terrorist attack, because we can't do it. We're not allowed to. And I think the majority of Americans are really looking forward to that as well.
I use an analogy to describe what I want as a hitman. If a hitman is hired and he kills somebody, the hitman goes to jail. But not only does the hitman go to jail, but the person who hired them does. There was an attack carried out on January 6th, and a hitman sent them. I want you to get to the bottom of that. So, thank you. Lastly, to the rioters, the insurrectionists, and the terrorists of that day, democracy went on that night and still continues to exist today. Democracy is bigger than any one person and any one party. You all tried to disrupt democracy that day, and you all failed.